Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, dear students. Let's complete this topic, translation, a model approach toward a model approach to translation curriculum development. In the previous lecture, we discussed two things, that is the process initiation phase, divided into certain steps that we discussed, and also one part of the development phase, and which was the pre-development stage. In this lecture, of course, we are going to complete the topic, which is very important, as I have said earlier more than once. And under this B part, development stage, we are going to discuss defining instructional objectives. Number two, preparation of material. Number three, teaching methods and techniques. And number four, selection of teachers. And then number five is developing lesson plans. And then two added steps which are very important: assessment and also evaluation. As for as a good image of this, the whole process is, you can see we are starting from number one, and then we shift to number two, and then move to number three, from number three to number four and number five, and then six and seven, although are combined here, but they are separate, as I shall explain when I come to that point. uh, Defining instructional objectives, or in a very short way, we can say objectives of the course, objectives of the whole curriculum. Let's say the curriculum is about it's a BS translation interpretation curriculum, or it's MS translation studies curriculum, or it's a curriculum for short courses. And then in this curriculum there are courses. So we are talking about the objectives of the curriculum, general objectives, and also objectives of each course. And the word instructional here means teaching objectives. So defining instructional objectives is, what are the objectives? Objectives are, as you can see, the definition: description of performance. You want, as a learner, you want learners to be, as you want as a teacher, of course, or developer, learners to be able to exhibit before you consider them competent. So the objective are the level of performance that you set in the very beginning. There are general objectives, there are specific objectives. So the example of general objectives: what are the objectives of BS translation and interpretation curriculum, the whole curriculum? What are the objectives of each individual courses? And under the courses there are topics. So what are the objectives of each topic or subtopic, and so on and so forth? So there are general objectives, and then there are specific objectives, and then in the process there are more specific and most specific objectives. So and needs to define objectives, is very important, because if you don't know your objective for, let's say, for you want to go to Lahore, you want to travel to Peshawar, and you don't know why are you going to Lahore and why are you going to travel towards Peshawar. I think if objective is not clear, so you would most probably wasting your time and resources. While defining instructional objectives, adult learning principles should be kept in mind, because the adults, they like participation, they like experience, and they are the main stakeholders. So they should be considered. So why instructional objectives? Why we are thinking about the instructional objectives for a translation curriculum? Because the quality of program or course or degree depends on them. And if the objectives are poorly defined, they can lead to confusion in all other steps where the contents are concerned, as for the teaching method is concerned, as for the lesson planning is concerned, as for the exams are concerned, and so on and so forth. And objectives are basically guiding principles for other activities. So the whole story, the whole the process starts with this setting the objective. There must be consistency and congruency. When we talk about the consistency and congruency, we are talking about that the objectives, at least from starting from the objectives till the end of the exams. So things should be consistent, things should be congruent, that they are synergized in a way that everything can be understood through the other one. The whole evaluation of the curriculum or the course depends on objectives, so they are very important from this aspects as well. Now we can discuss the characteristics of good objectives. uh, One of the characteristics are that the developers, they consider who the learners are, and the objective, they also describe expected performance by the learners. This has already been indicated. They should describe the important conditions for performance. This is very important. It's not general, expected performance anywhere, anytime. No, it is describe the important conditions for the performance, where and when, to what extent. Should state the criteria for judging the success. When we try to assess the performance, there must be a criteria which should be embedded in the objectives. After setting the objectives of, as I said, for the whole curriculum and or for the course and so on and so forth, we move forward to the preparation of material. When we say the preparation of material, mainly we are talking about of the contents, and then of course collection of material or selection of material. Because in preparation of material, the basic debate, which is very hot debate among the professionals and scholars of translation studies, theory and practice. And theory without practice, one quote of one of the scholars is, theory without practice is empty, and practice without theory is blind. So both are required. The only solution, or the only way out, is the proportion to what should be the percentage of the theory for what course at what level, and what should be the percentage of the practice for what course and for what level, for how much time. Maximum coverage, the curriculum of the course, when preparing the material for the course or the curriculum, maximum coverage of the text types, if we are preparing for the whole curriculum, BS translation interpretation, for example. So the text types should be covered: literary, technical, legal, medical, and so on. Although in the market nowadays, the demand for the technical text is more than the other types of text. But in the curriculum, there should be a balance. Writing and reading assignments in SL and TL, of course, should be part of the of the curriculum. This means that there must be sufficient language courses, of course, related to the communication in that language, or this language or language pair, be must be included in the curriculum. Textbook versus recommended books. Some of the courses where textbooks are very important and necessary, when of course we are talking about the reading assignments, when we are talking about the practical translation. I think the textbook or similar material is very good. But as for the courses in theoretical aspects, or the subtopics that are related to theories, that can be, of course, there can be recommended books or recommended material for their purpose. When preparing the material for a certain course or curriculum, the time factor should be kept in mind. How many hours are available for this course, for that component, and how many years are available, how many semesters are available, and so on. The material should also be divided according to the knowledge and skills, and also it should be divided according to the available time, and also theory and practice should be divided, division of time as per theory and practice. And I think this point, for my student, this point is very much clear, because I always express my opinion about this, that at this level, BS level, the focus should be on the practice more. with, of course, some theoretical frameworks and principles of translating and strategies and so on. A theoretical framework is less than the practice in BS level, but higher stages it is the other way around. After this, the next step, which is very important for the developers, teaching methods and techniques. They actually, this is their duty or their uh, function to devise the teaching method suitable for each course, for a topic, for an activity, for the smallest thing and for the bigger things in one course or in the whole curriculum. uh, Engagement of students in the instruction process is very important. There are active and passive modes of instruction. We will discuss different methods, and of course hence there are variety of methods. Some have been discussed here. Six are included in the article and seventh is of course added. These are the methods and techniques, teaching techniques discussed in this article: lecture method, discussion method, audio-visual methods, experiential methods, role-playing, computer-based methods, and the added method is the integrated method. So let's see the each method in detail. Lecture method, of course, is the teacher is standing and delivering the lecture, and the students are, sitting and they are just listening, taking notes, and maybe in the end there is some time for asking questions. And this is called passive teaching method. There are advantages associated to this lecture method. It's stimulated enthusiasm, thus learning is enhanced. Because if the lecturer is very enthusiastic, is very motivated, and this would be the advantage of this. This transmits information to large number of students in a short time, and lecture method is good for transferring the information. So you see, in 40 minutes lecture, one lecturer can stand in front of 500 students and deliver a bunch of information within this comparatively short time. Another objective is that simpler method of presentation of information and suitable for transfer of theories, concepts, and procedures. This method is good, if not the best, for discussing theories, for presenting concepts, or explaining the procedures, and so on. In the lecture method, another advantage on is that the teacher, it is teacher centered method. Lecture method is a teacher centered method. Its maximum control lies in the hands of the teacher. But then there are many disadvantages related to this method. It's a passive role of students, because the students sit idle. They just become, they are just listening, or maybe they are not listening, they are paying attention, maybe they are not paying attention. So the passive role of the student is one of the disadvantages of this method. The one-way communication and no feedback is another disadvantage, because the lecturer is just talking, one-way flow of the information, ideas, concepts, theories, and the other side is just trying to receive or understand it. It required theoretical ability in teaching, because if the lecturer is not so motivated, does not have the theoretical abilities in delivering the lecture, and hence of course creating interest in his or her lecture, this would be very very big disadvantage for the learning purpose. It's not suitable for application analysis, this is for sure, because there's application, there are research behind it. There's little role in attitudinal and behavioral changes. Lecture method does not bring behavioral or attitudinal changes in the learners. A student learn at the same pace and at the same level. All the students of understanding, which is a wrong assumption. Though 40 students sitting in front of the lecturer are not equal in their abilities, in their in their way of learning, in their uh, when they are comfort with one way or the other. Maybe the lecturer is using lecture technique which suits some of them but does not suit to others. Lecture methods disadvantages is shorter attention span of students. After a few minutes they lose their attention, and of course they start doing thinking something else, or they start doing something else, some other activities. So they do not pay uh, good attention to the lecture for a long time. It requires self-motivated speakers, as I think, which is, I have said this earlier, which is very rare. Is poorly suited for individualized training, because when the training is required, individualized training is required, perhaps it is not very much suited. As a lack of dialogue is another disadvantage. Lecture is usually forgotten quickly, and there's no interaction and no sharing even among the students or between the students and the lecturer. The second method here is the discussion method, which is very interesting method and should be used in the area of translation. It's the active mode of instruction. Uh, it's a two-way communication between the instructor and the students, and among the students themselves. So the students, they also discuss among themselves, and the teacher, there's a discussion between the teacher and the students. It gives the students an opportunity for feedback, clarification, and exchange of ideas. By the way, what is discussion method? There are different modes of discussion method that can be adopted. Students can be asked to read the topic before prior to the class. So when they come, the teacher just start the discussion, and then the student they continue discussing that point among themselves, and then the teacher may intervene and clear some of the ideas, or create some of the of the links that were missed in their discussion, and so on and so forth. And other could be that groups can be divided, students can be divided into groups, and they can be asked to prepare the same topic, but there can be debate among them, and for and against, and the role of the teacher in this is just an observer, or assess the level of the discussion, and with the little least interference in this discussion. And there are many more techniques for using this discussion method. It requires skilled instructor who can effectively initiate and manage class discussion, because managing class discussion is very important. For that purpose, the instructor should be skilled, and knows how to do all that. It requires time management by instructor. If there are three topics to be there are three things that to be discussed for the same topic, so the teacher should have a clear time division in his or her mind for the discussion of these three. Students should be given a common reference point for meaningful discussion, of course, with the help of the teacher. The third method, teaching method here, is audiovisual methods, and there are three things or groups or modes: static media, dynamic media, and telecommunications. Because of the technology, what do we mean by the static media? Is the printed material, slides, and overhead transparencies. I don't know whether you know the overhead transparencies. They were used before the multimedia technology was mm, made available. But the printed material in the fish of chart, in the cards, and the slides, of course, and so on and so forth. Dynamic media is the videos, the films, the audios, and so on and so forth. By telecommunications, we mean teaching to different locations via satellite networks and video conferencing. So I think these are different audiovisual methods, and they are also very good for teaching translation. So selection of appropriate audiovisual media, is the conditions, performance, and standards of each instructional objective. So when we want to select one of these three audiovisual medium or media, of course. So we should consider the conditions, performance, and standards of each instructional objective. So this should be related to the required performance level, student characteristics and preferences, and learning environment, of course. And then the practical considerations that may determine which media are feasible. I'm just going through these points, and I hope you would ask me more in these things, because they are practical things. Economic factors that may determine which media are feasible, of course. This is also very important. And the fourth method is experiential method. Experiential method is basically creating an artificial but realistic environment to investigate and employ new concepts, skills, and behaviors. It is actually, learning by doing, and then reflecting on the experience by each member of the group. In this way of teaching, active engagement on the part of the students is very, very important. Effective learning is an if inactive experience, is when the student they pass through this experience, they learn a lot. Experiential method challenges the skills, knowledge, and beliefs of the student. It also brings behavioral, attitudinal changes in the students, and they also learn through this method. They also learn how to perform in a group, how to work in a group, how to contribute in a group, or how to work in a team for one object, for the single objective. uh, I think experiential method I should have told you before that, but meaning is learning by doing and reflecting on the experiences. I have mentioned it requires enough information to analyze a certain situation and propose solution, analytical and problem solving skills, and case study is one way or one technique of the experiential method, but there are other as well. This can be open-ended, this can be planned, this can be organized. Case study is one of the organized technique for the experiential method. The next is role playing, which is very relevant to interpreting, as for our case is concerned. It's opportunity for self discovery and learning, and useful in applying new concepts, skills, and attitudes, and exposing students to real life situations. And as I said, it is very, very much relevant to interpreting, creating that environment for interpreting, or taking the students to the real interpreting instances. Computer-based teaching method is, of course, computer-assisted, computer-aided instruction, and also intelligent computer-assisted instruction. Both are same, but only intelligent is the method where other functions are included, where the assessment of the student, the level pace of the learning of the students is also available with the help of the software development. Using the computer as the main deliverer of the material in the training session, the computer becomes the main deliverer of the material in the training session, but with the help of the human, of course. Anyways, there are advantages. Computer based is interactive, one-on-one relationship between the student and computer. Speed of instruction according to the students needs and pace. They know how to, they can slow down the pace according to their need, and they can also skip some of the things that they already know. It's automatic track of progress. As I said, the intelligent computer assisted, computer aided instruction method is very efficient in this, because it keeps the record, it keeps the mistakes, it keeps the progress step by step. For using this, of course, teaching method, computer based methods, the students and the teachers, they should be both familiar with the latest technology, else it cannot be used. uh, The added method is integrated method. It's not a new method. Actually, it is the integration of these six methods or other methods and techniques, of course, because each method has different techniques. So other methods and techniques in keeping in view these questions: what should be taught, why it should be taught, the objectives, when it should be taught, with the time available, where the place or the facilities that we have, and how it should be taught, and by whom it should be taught, and how much it should be taught. So keeping in view all these questions, the method can be, different in different. Let's suppose uh, 1 hour like class, you can use for 10 minutes the lecture method, the other 10 minutes for the discussion method, the other 10 minutes for role playing, for other 10 minutes, not 10 minutes, experiential method needs more time. So you can plan this time even within the 60 minutes slot for a class. But here, of course, if a teacher opts for the integrated method for his or her class or course or topic, the prior preparation, is minute preparation for the class is a must, because without that, he or she cannot use this method effectively. Okay, after this, the teaching selection of teaching method, we come to the selection of the teachers. So, who should teach translation courses? We have three opinions, one options as well: the academics, the scholars, and then the professional translators, those who are not scholars of translation studies, but they are practitioners. A team of academics and professionals. So third view combines both. See, the academics, they teach the theoretical aspects, and the professionals, they take care of the practical training of the translators and interpreters. And this the prerequisites for a competent translation teacher. As for these three, we in the department, we are using all these three in some of the courses. Some of our teachers, they are very good at describing theoretical aspects, and some of the teachers, they are coming from the market and they are professional translators, and some of our teachers, they combine both, because when they came to the department, they brought their professional experiences in the market, and also they became the scholars in the area of translation studies. So all these three options are used in the department right now. Prerequisites for a competent translation teacher: uh, sound knowledge of source language and target language and translation theory, sound knowledge of translation procedures, cognition and methodology, sound comprehension of what translation is and how it occurs, of course, the practical procedures of translating, process of translating, permanent interest in reading various kinds of texts is very, very important. The translation teacher is not, is the one who just teaches you the translation. He is the one who reads, who is well aware of what is happening around, what is happening in the whole world, what are the political situations in general, and the economic conditions of the countries, and also in other sectors of the economy and country or international relations, and so on and so forth. Number four, the ability to communicate ideas clearly. This is a language competence, communication ability for this emphatically and openly. The teacher should have this ability. Number five is the ability to work out synthesis and interrelationships of ideas. Synthesis, that things, they look unrelated, they looked isolated, but the teacher should have the ability to synthesize them and to create the interrelationship among these ideas. Capacity to create and maintain a warm classroom environment. It's a teacher's duty, and it's actually required by any good teacher to maintain this environment, warm classroom environment, throughout the lecture or the class. Capacity to search and research, very obvious. Accuracy and truthfulness, of course, should be very critical. Self-critical and analytical capacities, and clear assessment criteria. Selection of teacher, the teacher should have clear assessment criteria. We'll talk about the assessment after some time. The next step is developing lesson plan. What is a lesson plan? Lesson plan is a guide for actual delivery of the content. How it's a usage of, it's effective use of the teaching method or teaching techniques is the lesson plan. uh, Structure and flow of the lesson, how this lesson is going to be structured and sequence and flow, the time allocation for each activity and so on, requires activities and time for each activities. So this is the important, this is the basic idea, meaning of the lecture plan. uh, Here we have a suggested format for lecture plan, not necessarily, but I think these are principles for writing a lecture plan. Number one is learning objectives should be kept in the mind. The target students should be known to the one who is planning the lecture. What are the class required prerequisites? Should be prerequisites are related to the academic and intellectual, or the topic or the knowledge, and also the material things, the physical things, the technology, and so on and so forth. Content to be covered should be very clear. Level of the content that should be covered should be very clear. Selection, design of the teaching or training media that we have discussed, that should be selected for almost each class, or even within the class, for each activity. uh, some uh, some good ideas about the format is planning of each activity, sequencing of each activity is very important. Which activity should precede the next, which activity should precede the other, which activity should come first and second and third, and which activity should become at the end, and how the last activity should be connected with the other. Time allocation for each activity, types of evaluation items, because during the teaching process, the good teacher always try to assess or his effectiveness of his teaching. Common mistakes in lesson planning. The objectives of the lesson plans, objective of the lesson plans does not specify what the students will actually do that can be observed and assessed. Again, we are coming back to the objectives. The lesson assessment is disconnected from the behavior indicated in the objective. Again, we are referring back to the objective. The material specified in the lesson is unnecessary, the actual objective. Again, we are referring back to the objective through the material for that topic. The instruction in which the instructor will engage is not efficient for the level of intended student learning. In a way, indirectly, we are also referring back to the objective or some other, of course, steps that have been looked over. The students' activities described in the lesson plan do not contribute in a direct and effective way to lesson objectives. So you see that one way or the other, directly or indirectly, through some other steps, we are referring back to the objectives. Now come to the added steps in this phase is the assessment of the learners. As for the assessment of the learners concern, we mean by assessment examination, but that doesn't mean the sit in examination for 3 hours. Of course they are included, but the assessment of the learners means in the semester system it is a continuous process. There are other activities given, the observation of the teachers, small assignments and the projects, and some field work on presentations that are given inside the classroom in front of the teachers, in front of the other students, and then the sitting exam, some writing assignments, and the feedback, and so on. So assessment actually covers assessment of the learning by the learners in that particular course, and assessment assessment has many different ways, techniques, and devices that are used for the sake of knowing to what extent the students are learning what, and what are the reasons when they find it difficult to learn something. As for the evaluation of the curriculum is concerned, because assessment is for the learners, the students, but evaluation is for the curriculum. You see, we started with the objectives, and later we came to the assessment. After the assessment, of course, evaluation of the whole process which was started in the previous time should be done. It's a research study. Basically, it is a research, it's a study that should be done, because that evaluation of the curriculum contributes in the refinement, in the betterment, and in the further development of the curriculum, which is very, very essential. Nowadays it's a continuous process, and some of the people, they say uh, after every 3 years the evaluation of the whole curriculum should be carried out by the curriculum developers, or by those who were involved in the implementation of that curriculum. So it's a very, very important step as for the the betterment of of any curriculum. We can see the whole process here: objectives, material, teaching method, lesson planning, need assessment, again started need assessment, and then evaluation, and then objectives. After evaluation of the whole process, we come back to the objectives, to define them, to make them match the needs of the market, needs of the student, needs of the institution, and so on and so forth. So, for the sake of summary of the whole topic, which is a model approach to curriculum development, translation curriculum development, we can have these slides. We know that's the process initiation phase. We have discussed all these things. It is process initiation phase, and the activities that revolve around it are forming a team of developers, brainstorming for developers, and then task assignment, and then setting deadlines for task accomplishment, and so on. But when we come to the curriculum development phase, we have two stages here. One is the pre-development stage, which is related to the identifying the needs, market needs, the student needs, and the needs of the institution, and then the actual curriculum development, which is B part of the curriculum development phase, this stage. And in this stage we see that we have objective that we discussed today, and the material, preparation of material, and method, teaching methods, and the selection of teachers, and lesson planning. And then number 6 and 7 again have been put here in one box, but they are not one. Assessment is related to the learners, and evaluation of the whole implemented process. So with this, the lecture ends. For your next reading assignment is this overview of the main pedagogical approaches for translation. It has been written, handwritten there, and you are required to read introduction, which start with number 3, which is chapter number 3 of the book, and then you are required to read the error oriented approach, which is here under this 3.1. Thank you very much for giving your attention for this lecture. Take very good care of yourself, dear student.